G'day YouTube, my name's Lance and welcome to Bundy Bear's Shed. Well look, today we're going to run through the clutch on a Fergie. We actually have a Sparex S72899 pressure plate, and we're not going to pull that apart, but I have an old one we can pull apart so we can show you what goes on inside. And we also have a Sparex S42167 main clutch plate. Now, this same clutch is in the TE20, TED, TEF, look, most of them. The Fergie 35 with the single stage clutch, it's the same process to pull them apart and have a look and get them going and get going from there. But there's a couple of things that are of interest that people will want to know, and well, you want to know why would you want to know? You want to know for a couple of reasons actually. And when you're putting a clutch back in a tractor, you'll notice that, well, that just looks fine to you. But when you look at this way here, you'll notice that the boss out one side is far more offset than the other. And so you can actually put that plate in backwards when you go back together. So what the idea is, I've drawn a little diagram here. I believe, yeah, I think you can see that. So we have the flywheel here. There's a recess in the flywheel for the bolts to go in. Then we have the clutch plate. Now the clutch plate, the offset, looks more pronounced on this. The offset goes away from your flywheel. Now, you can't put it in wrong, but if people, I have had people in the past, they put this with that, hold it up there and just bang it on. And they don't really know that while they're putting it on, it's actually bending this plate. And once this plate's got a dish in it, chuck it. It's just no good anymore. So the offset goes away from the flywheel towards the pressure plate, and that's a little thing that you will need to know. Over the years they've changed the clutch plates. Early days, this is an early one, and I think they had an earlier one than this too, but these are the only ones I can find in my shed anyway. And you'll notice that we have a smooth lining, and the rivets don't have holes in them, and it does have a little spring in the centre though. You can see that there's a little gap in between the plates. It's slightly spring loaded there. And so when you actually push that, you'll see that move. Now, in some instances that gave you a lighter clutch pedal. As you went to take off, that little last spring bit would stop it from being so sudden and biting so hard. But as time changed, so did the clutch plates. And over time, you'll notice some clutches, and if you own a Fergie, you will know that sometimes the clutch is really jerky. As you let your foot off, it's either on or off, and a little secret, if you have oil on it, is put it in top gear, slip the clutch a couple of times, burn the oil off, and then away you go. So because they're old tractors, you do have leaky rear engine seals and things like that don't contribute to a nice clutch. So with the old surface, with this smooth surface, if you've got a little bit of oil or grease or oil build up over the years on your flywheel or your clutch pressure plate, what would happen is this would stick, and with the rivets like that, the rivets with no holes through them, it would actually help hold it there. And so you'd put your foot on the clutch, the pressure plate would come away, yet this would be stuck to the flywheel. Because it would form like a suction cap action with these rivets, and with this smooth surface there, it'd just stick on, and you'd have to push your foot on the brake or something just to make it break. This smooth surface, it would polish up as well, and it would get real shiny. So when it gets shiny, you lose the grip that it needs to transfer motion from your flywheel through to your transmission front drive shaft. So over the time, to stop that, what they did was brought out a different type of lining. Now this lining here Yep, you can see that. It's got a woven grain in it, and that type of lining there, it doesn't polish up as badly as the other ones, which it helps with that problem of it sticking on. And you'll also notice that the rivets are drilled through. Now when I was an apprentice, I had the job one day on a tractor of actually, they had trouble with it, and I had the job with a little tiny drill, and I had to actually drill the centre out of the rivets and repeen them because we had trouble with them, but it's unheard of now. So this is a, look, I think in Townie they call these velvet glide plates, but your area may have called them something completely different, but the farmers used to say that, yeah, you could go and get a velvet glide plate put in. And to my knowledge, that's what it is. That's what we called it anyway. But look, in different areas, this goes worldwide, so your area may have been something different. Now, what Sparex have done with the clutch plate, they still use the woven fabric with their clutch plate. They don't have as many rivets. They've gone just to a row around the outside here, where this one had quite a few more. But when you look at the rivets around the outside, there's a lot more here, but there's a lot less in here. And so the weak link on these is that little spring section in there. There's a where the spring thins out for that velvet glide action. That's the weak link. I have seen them broken there quite a bit. So what Sparex have done, they've got a single row of rivets and they've put a solid plate in there. So what's the advantage of that? Well, we lose the velvet guide action, which, look, it shouldn't matter anyway with this new lining surface. And with the new lining surface and the holes in the rivets, if it does get a bit tacky down there, it won't suction cup on, for want of a better word. And they've also got the grooves coming in around here. Now, the idea of the grooves is as your engine turns and this starts to take up, each clutch will slip for a moment before it actually takes and transfers the torque from your engine through to your gearbox. Because these are on an angle, the idea is that they'll work any rubbish out of there. And look, it works okay. There's nothing wrong with this idea at all. It's a great idea. You'll also notice that with the Sparex hub, you'll notice, I'll see if I can get them both together there for you. You notice the beef or the meat around the hub on the Sparex clutch. That's a good thing. Gives you a bit more circulating mass to slow down, of course, but in saying that, I have never, even though this has the extra meat there, I have never had one just blow apart in the spline here. I've had them tear these out if people are being rough with them, the rivets around the centre. I've had them undo that, but look, that's just a progression of it. I use the Sparex ones every time. I don't use any others. And Sparex, they're worldwide and they do sponsor my channel, but the reason I went and asked them, or we had a meeting with the bosses about sponsoring it, was because I was using a lot of their gear anyway, and I find it's good quality. And there is cheaper stuff out there, I know, but you can't beat the quality. Now, on the pressure plate, if you have I'll see if I can find, it's hard to get it to focus, but that is not a mirror finish. You can see a machined surface, and you can just see the tool path around there. When you tidy your clutch up, this part here, if that's cracked in any way, chuck it and put the new Sparex pressure plate on. If it's not, and it's just a little bit rough around the edges, well, you can restore a clutch. And with this video, we've got to work out a few things. Before I did the video, I thought, well, I'll do a bit of homework and I'll have a look at the finger heights and all that of the Fergie clutches, so I can just say, well, you know, when you got it in, you need to adjust it up until your finger height is 30 millimetres from the plate or anything, but I can't find that information anywhere. The manual doesn't have it. The manual doesn't even give you a height. The genuine Ferguson manual There is a gauge you can buy to go across here and measure down there to your fingers, but let's face it, in the shed with 1 or 2 Fergies, and whether you're using Fergies as a hobby or whether you're a collector or whether you have a little farm, no need to gear up with all the massive Ferguson tools to do it all. It's just not necessary. So what we're going to do with this is, I have an old flywheel and I'm going to tidy up the flywheel a little bit. We're going to bolt the brand new, out of the box, Sparex factory clutch up, and we're going to take some measurements. And the reason for that is so everyone's got a reference for that, so everyone knows that the finger height out of the box on a clutch that works, this will work without a doubt, I can prove it. And so what we're looking to do is get some benchmarks on what's the finger height of a Fergie clutch, or what should it be, because it is adjustable via these screws here. Yeah, the thickness of a plate, things like that. You can find the thickness of a plate spec, but I have an old pressure plate. I'm not going to pull the brand new Sparex one apart. I have an old pressure plate over here from one of my tractors that we're going to strip. Just work through what you can do at home and get it going again. Now, with the clutch plates, you can buy new linings for them and have them re-riveted. Nothing really wrong with that. But for the price of a new plate nowadays, I like these solid plates, and it's my preference anyway. But it's just a preference. Other people will say, "Oh, they're crap. I like the velvet drive." So that's fine. We're happy with all that. But look, for the price of a new clutch plate, I would put a new one in. If these plates here have oil in them, and you've got your clutch apart for some reason, whether you've just got the engine off because you're repairing the engine or doing a front gearbox seal or something like that, there's some reason that you're in there looking at this clutch. If the plate is full of oil and grease and let's face it may be 60 years old. I've tried soaking them in petrol overnight and scrubbing them with a brush and letting the oily residue come to the surface. I can put them out in the sun and you'll see an oily residue come to the surface, so you wipe that off and you go through the process again. And I've brake-a-leaned them to try and clean them up as well. But look, in reality, you can do it, it will get you going, but I choose not to do that anymore. I just put a new clutch plate in and you're away. Now, they're not expensive, but I can't say a price because my price in Australia will be different to a British price or an American price or something like that. But there's a Sparex website near you, sparex.com.au in Australia, but there is worldwide sites. So look up these numbers, ring your local dealer, he'll give you a price on what it will cost for your area. Also, while you're doing it, there's a throw-out bearing assembly that pushes on these fingers. Look, people spin them, oh that'll be good for another run and all that. Look, in Australia they're 30 bucks or something like that. I don't do that. In the past I have boiled a bit of grease and sat it in and done that, but I don't need to do that anymore. I just restore things differently to how I used to. But if that's what you need to do, you do it. But look, what we'll do, we'll bolt this clutch pressure plate and the clutch plate onto a flywheel, the brand new one, and we'll go and get some measurements as benchmark measurements. And we'll bolt an old one there too, and just see if they're all set the same with the same plate. Now, as this clutch plate wears and gets thinner and thinner and thinner, the finger height gets higher and higher and higher. So you'll notice the free travel at the top of your pedal, your clutch pedal, will decrease. So as the fingers get higher, it pushes the throw-out bearing back, so the free travel at the top of your clutch becomes less. So if you put your finger on your clutch pedal and it's hard right away and your clutch is slipping, it may not be letting these fingers come fully out, and without it becoming fully out, it's not getting the proper clamping pressure there. So loosen the pivot on your pedal, undo the bolt on the pedal, and give yourself a little bit of free travel, by 3/4 inch or something like that. As long as it has some, don't get too wound up in the measurements. Yeah, you can say, oh, 32 millimetres, and you can spend all afternoon getting that 2 millimetres. It's just not necessary. If you look at the theory behind it, you're just looking for the throw-out bearing to come away from these fingers, so it's not running all the time. If you have no free travel at the top of your clutch pedal, your throw-out bearing is running on these fingers constantly, and when you're going down the paddock ploughing or running down to the bottle shop, that bearing's turning. Now with a correctly adjusted clutch pedal, that throw-out bearing will come away from these fingers, and that bearing will only turn when you take that free travel up on your pedal. So if you have no free travel on your pedal, before you split your tractor, have a look. Have a look and see what's going on. The throw-out bearing should only ever touch here when you come to the hard part on your pedal. So anyway, enough talking from me. Let's get over to the press. I'll bolt this onto a flywheel. I've probably got to clean it up first, but I'll bolt it onto a flywheel and we'll take some measurements just so we know what our finger height should be, what it is straight out of the box, which we know is a good thing, and yeah, I haven't been able to find that information, so it'll be interesting to have it. Well, while I've got the flywheel out, I just cleaned this up with a wire brush, and you'll notice I've got arrows, those little holes. See, that one's got dirt in it? So they're the ones on the other side. When you're timing your tractor, you put the little pointer in. Absolutely nothing to do with clutches. While I was here, I thought I'd point it out to you. Now, get the clutch up the back there. Now, I said before about the plate being in the right spot. That's the way it goes with the snout up. If we go the other way, you really should notice that. If you don't, you better hand in your spanners, I think. Alright, look, I'll bolt this pressure plate on. At this stage I don't have to worry about lining it up and all that with a clutch aligning tool. It's not necessary, but I'll bolt it up and then we'll take some measurements from here down and just see what we have. Well, you'll see that we've bolted the clutch on here. Look, don't over tighten them, they're only 5/16 UNC bolts. But what we're looking to do here is just get a measurement from our fingers to the flange on the clutch plate. Now the flange that we go to is this piece here. And I was wondering with different clutch plates whether this flange would be different thicknesses. And it's not. On the 3 clutch plates I have here, they're all the same. And look, it's just under 200th there. So what we're doing is measuring the finger height down to on top of that flange there like that. So that should give us a pretty good indication. I'll just file that one on the floor. And so we'll come down, just touch the finger. And there we have 30 millimetres. We'll come around the other side here. .30 millimetres. Now when you have the tractor or the clutch and the flywheel on the tractor, you can still do this. So what have we learned from that so far? We've learnt that when we pan up on here a little bit, we've learned that the finger height is 30 millimetres. Which is something I couldn't find that I couldn't find that before in any of the books, what that measurement was. So these here, I'll probably put a dab of Loctite on these, and they are a crimp lock nut. You can see just I'll see if I can zoom in on one for you. I'll try the other zoom. Oh, that might, you can just see a little mark here and here on the bolts, and they're just crimp lock bolts. Some of them have a little shoulder there, and you actually get a punch and go bang and knock it in. But that finger height now is good. We're all happy with that at 30 millimeters. When we look at these threads here, we're only a couple of threads out. So we found our 30 mil. Let's pull that back off, and we'll go and put an old one on and see what we got. Okay, we have the flywheel here, same flywheel we had before with the little red arrows on it. We have an old pressure plate here that we're going to pull apart and recondition. And what we've got in the press, we sit it in the press, and this is just a little bit of 2B1 box section. We just take the pressure. Now, as the pressure comes on, you'll notice that those fingers come down. So the fingers come down and they're loose. Now, so that's what we need. We just need to take the pressure there. Now, before we start pulling things apart, this clutch may have well been balanced at some stage in its life. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a couple of centre pump marks down here, and a couple of witness marks, so we can come back together in the same spot, just in case it was balanced, and that's the right way to go around it. Now, the next thing we do is undo these screws here. There's 3 of them, and on my particular clutch here they're 18 millimeters. Now, there would have been a 2132 or something like that spanner that was around years ago. Everyone had them in their kit that they never knew what to do with. This must have been the only job I've ever come across that they would have fitted. But anyway, look, 18 millimeters is the go, and you'll see it's been peened in. The nut's got a little raised section here, and when they got the fingers right, they got a punch or something and just banged him up and locked it in there. So we have to undo that. So we'll just pop these fingers out, and you'll see, I think you can see this finger here just, it should be going down as I'm undoing the nut. I also have a clutch plate in there to hold a bit of tension up against the plate. Alright, to keep the video short, I'll undo these and I'll come back when they're done. Alright, we've undone the nuts. That's what they look like. There's a dome on the bottom, so they're sort of self-centralising. So we'll take the 3 nuts away. The fingers have dropped right down now, and they're all sloppy. There's no load there anymore. So now we let the press up gently. That's the press, not me, making all that noise. But you knew that, eh? Yeah. Okay, so now we can just safely lift the top off. That's what's underneath. They're anti-rattle springs that stop your fingers from rattling around. Now, we have 9 springs in there. Apparently over the years there was different coloured springs. You can't mix them up. They say not to anyway. So you just take the springs out of the way for the moment. Now the fingers, which one can you see best? That one there, I think. There's a little bar in here that holds the fingers in. You can just see it at the back there. You should be able to lift the lift the finger out from under there, and that's what the bar looks like. And it sits down there and gives your finger something to pivot on. So how does this all work? Well, when you have the finger sitting up here and the nut on the top here on your cover, and the nut on the cover, this nut with its curved underside becomes your pivot point. So as you push the finger down, because this is held up, you push the finger down and it lifts the plate off for you. You can see that action? Hey, live action. So look, we'll get all them out of the way. Easier said than done on that one. That's it. On the bottom of the bolt they have a locating pin that sits down in the hole there. They get a bit stuck on that sometimes. That goes back in the pin like that, into the finger. This one doesn't want to come, I wonder why. There we go. Didn't even have to do any swearing. So what we're left with is this plate. Now you can see with this plate, this has been out in the weather or something like that, and you can see down through here how the clutch plate has been stuck to it, rusted on. Now that's what happens when you have a plate or a tractor that's sat outside for a long time. It sort of rusts on a little bit. So no harm done there though. What we're looking for, we're just looking to see that's flat through there. If there's a couple little marks, little scuffs, it doesn't matter. But what we do need to look for is that from front to back there's no air gap under here. So we're looking to see that that hasn't got a dish in it for any reason. And this one looks fine. We're looking at there's no cracks in through this section here. And you can see the little drillings here. That's for balancing. And this whole assembly, this section here probably would have been balanced on its own, I would imagine, because they wouldn't pull it apart and balance that and put it back again. But look, we'll go and clean all this up. We'll wash all our parts up, and we'll just run through assembling the clutch, and yeah, Bob's your uncle.